I am super grateful to be here with my friend Myles. We actually originally met because he stayed in our Airbnb
Yes.
with his wife. And since then, we've just built a friendship. Our families are great friends. And Myles is somebody that I really admire. He's faced a lot in his life, he's overcome a lot, and he carries so much wisdom. And so let me introduce you to Myles.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thank you, by the way, for having me. This is like awesome.
Yeah.
Super inspired and encouraged by you guys all the time.
Oh, thank you so much. So, what would you like to add on to your introduction and just say about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm 29 years old, and my wife and I moved from Atlanta, Georgia to Greenville, South Carolina, where we are locally. And we have 3 kids together. I do a lot in real estate. So I own rental property, fix and flip, wholesale. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. But yeah, we're super entrepreneurial. We like to travel. We like to have fun, connect with people, and just enjoy life. We love food and we love international anything because my wife is German actually. So her mom is Polish, and so her name is Polish. So Denise Kowaczewska, but she was raised in Germany. And then I was born in Panama, Central America, Caledonia. And then my mom is from Montego Bay, Jamaica. So anyway, our whole family is like totally international, and yeah.
Huge melting pot. How long did you live in Panama?
So I was there for like 3 years, and then moved to the US when I was like 3 or 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you probably don't have many memories from Panama.
Not a lot of memories, but I definitely have memories. Like I remember, it's kind of funny because, you live like sort of next to this jungle. Well, at least we did, the rainforest in Central America. So a lot of my memories were honest. They had to deal a lot with food and animals. Like I remember there being like, alligators, on the window panels, or, frogs that you could hear very audibly. I remember it would rain a lot, and I remember there was this guy that would always have this little fish cart where he would essentially, because we're right by the water, so he would go out and fish in the morning, and that's kind of how he built his career, and that was his business, is he would go out and catch fish and then just drive the cart around to locals and just sell them like fresh right there. So I always remember that guy coming through. That couple memories like that, yeah.
Maybe that's where you got your entrepreneurial
spirit. Right. The first time I ever saw a guy, why is this guy, where did he get the fish from? And how does, anyway.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So growing up in this multicultural family must have been, it's just unique.
Yeah.
Not everyone can say that. How do you think that's shaped who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it gives you a better perspective of honestly what the world actually is like. I think a lot of us, we tend to gravitate towards people that are like us for good reason, right? I mean, you obviously are going to feel more comfortable with those individuals. You're going to learn a lot from those individuals, and you're going to enjoy because you have very similar interests and similar backgrounds. But I think there's definitely power in being challenged, and a lot of that is getting out of your comfort zone and being around people that are not like you, which not everyone's comfortable with. Typically, if you're Caucasian or if you're Hispanic or if you're African American, whatever it may be, you tend to just hang out with those individuals because you know things that are similar and it works. But if you can plant yourself in a completely different experience, not only does that expand your reality of what the world really is like, because a lot of people live in a sort of utopia or their own sheltered reality, and it actually hinders your ability to connect with people. And that's just one of my beliefs, is that success in life really is about your ability to connect and serve and all kinds of people. That's my faith in Christ, and that's what Jesus did. I mean, he wasn't focused on just one kind of person. He came to serve everyone on the earth, and I think that's a beautiful representation of how we should go about our own life. So anyway, so it exposed me to a lot of different cultures, backgrounds. I mean, it's so funny, actually it was interesting the other day. I can't remember where we were, but it's always funny because obviously people, might see, they just would never think that I like know anything about their culture. But I
Mm.
was recently talking to this lady. Oh, it was at the hospital. When Denise was at the hospital, one of the nurses I could tell was Indian. And again, because my cultural experience had been expanded, I could connect with her, and it actually brightened up her day because
Wow.
she's probably Indian. And honestly, a lot of the women that were there were just, Caucasian. I think there's maybe one Hispanic, so sometimes you feel like you're kind of like that only person. Right. But
Yeah.
it just made her almost see, I could sense this sort of like, almost pride of like, oh, wow, someone really like, knows my culture because, anyway, I asked her, I was like, where are you from, by the way? I already knew she was from, I just wanted to start the conversation.
Yeah.
So I said, where are you from? And she's like, India. So I go, oh, no way. What part? And she explained her part. And I go, oh, do you speak Hindi? And she's like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. मैं तुमसे प्यार करता हूँ. And she's like,
I mean, I'm surprised.
yeah, and she was like, what? You know Hindi? I was like, yeah, no, cool. Anyway, it started this whole conversation. She felt so excited. And it was just something like that to where like, people probably pass her all day, every day. And to have someone who goes, hey, I'm interested in connecting with you. And let me show you how I know how, I know how to connect. And speaking someone's language is always an amazing way to connect. Cause it obviously, what it shows is that number one, you took the you did the due diligence, number one, to learn the language, and you took the time to practice it and really understand it. So it shows that there's an actual interest and work that you put into it.
Yeah.
Obviously we all know it's not easy to learn a language, but we always know it's the most challenging thing when someone comes into your country, right? And they're expecting to be able to do this, but they don't know the language. And it's like, dude, you're not speaking, I'm trying to help you out, but you're not speaking English, right? Obviously we live in America. So, if someone's in your country and they're just speaking your language, you're like, you really look at them actually a little bit like, wow, that's amazing.
Way to go.
Yeah, way to go. That's amazing. So, it really shows people you care and that, you're wanting to connect with them.
Totally.
Anyway. So
good. How's your Spanish, by the way?
Yeah, nice transition here. How's your Spanish? Yeah, no, it's perfect. That's great because and again, that's just it's another example of well, I don't know, say another example, but it's just the idea of you lose it if you don't use it, right?
Yeah.
So my Spanish, in short, to answer your question, notice I'm like having all this talk around what my Spanish is like, but it's not as good as it should be. And the reason for that is because my dad, who still struggles with English today, was always trying to speak. He was always speaking English, right? So there's some parents that speak their native language at home.
Yeah.
Like my wife, she only speaks German. Obviously to Denise or to Mila. But my dad, especially being in America, it's almost like you really you need to learn English if you're going to be in America.
Yeah.
Obviously we know America and United States, whatever. So my dad focused more so on speaking English a lot. So I actually didn't hear a lot of Spanish at home.
Wow.
I learned a lot of my Spanish from just friends, just because of being Hispanic and kind of in that culture, but also just from just the culture. Like, we would watch MTV3 or different, telenovelas and just shows that I would learn based off what they were saying and stuff. What's really funny is one of the best, and I tell people this all the time, the best way I feel, one of the best ways, obviously the best ways to just go to a Spanish speaking country and just live there. Obviously.
Yeah.
But if you can't just immerse yourself, in a Spanish speaking country, one of the best ways to learn, at least with Spanish, is bachata. Because bachata, the word, if you listen to merengue or salsa, the words are fast. And a lot of times they even say words that aren't necessarily the most formal for you to really learn and understand, unless it's just colloquial, that you just kind of know if you're in the culture. But bachata, it's usually very articulate and very slow because of just the nature of the song. So, for example, there's this one song Hay una mujer. I don't know if you know that song.
Oh, no.
Que domina mis sentidos. So you can hear each word. Okay. So you go hay una mujer. And you're like, oh, that's okay. Hay una mujer. And you can, but you hear salsa. It's I don't know if you've ever heard gosh, what's his name? It's ah la 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 la. Y tu abuela bachata donde está?
It's a lot harder.
It's it's salsa and it's tu abuela bachata donde está? It's you're not gonna really
cut off those words.
Yeah, it's so much harder.
Yeah.
So if you can, if you're trying to learn Spanish, bachata, you're usually gonna be able to hear all the different articulations and the words. So anyway, so my Spanish is conversational, but it's not it's not professional in the sense like I couldn't just be in a hospital and just like, speak, all the different terms, terminologies medically or.
Well, I couldn't either. I think when learning a language, you learn what's useful. So if you need to learn something, then you learn it. But why would you study all these things and learn all these vocabulary words that you don't need?
Right.
If it's for work, I think it's for a different thing.
Right.
But if you don't need it, use your brain energy for something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What about siblings? Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I do. So I have an older brother, and I mean, we are completely opposite. So I'm total like just outgoing and creative minded, and it's not that one's better than the other. We're just completely opposite. He's much more reserved and engineer. He's aerospace engineer. I'm real estate entrepreneur. You're totally just different, but we were so close and we connect really well. So
that's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And what about traditions? Does your family have traditions, things that you do year after year or that you did growing up?
Yeah, for us, like our family is just really big on spending time together. And I know that sounds a little cliche, but I think some families, it's not necessarily taken for granted, but it's just natural for them to just always be all together. Like, like one thing, even in our household, is we like most of the times we'll eat dinner together and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, that just wasn't the case because both of my parents worked all the time. They just weren't around. So basically my mom would prepare food. It would be available. And then just my brother and I, when we would eat dinner before bed, we would just grab a plate. A lot of times go down in the den and maybe just hang out, watch TV while we're eating, or just like, it wasn't like family, dinners or just us being together, throughout most of the day. Like, again, as an entrepreneur, I can be home a lot. My wife stay at home. So like I'll swing by the house or I'll just finish work early and we're all at the house hanging out, so we spend a lot of time together. But growing up, we didn't have that luxury. My parents just worked all the time.
Yeah.
So one of the traditions that we typically do every year, my mom like rents out this like cabin and we just invite like everybody over. And it's just that thing that we do every year. There's a few things throughout the year that is basically centered around gathering. But I just remember in terms of a tradition, I know specifically, she's always like, make sure you're available for, it's just like this tradition we do.
Still does
which is
it.
like, and still today, actually.
Where's the cabin?
So it's in Augusta, Georgia. Well, it's like, so my parents live in Augusta, Georgia, and it's like it's kind of like it's by a lake, so it's a little bit further out.
Okay.
But it's essentially it's like in Augusta, Georgia, essentially. But it's like this little cabin out by this lake, and we all just get together, we grill, play games, and it's just super fun. So yeah.
Very cool. What do you feel like are the most valuable lessons that your parents taught you or things that they instilled in you?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It kind of goes hand in hand with obviously my injury, being hit by a drunk driver. So I was hit by a drunk driver, became an amputee, and just, my whole life flipped upside down. But it's interesting because, I think there's two things that you can really learn from your upbringing, your parents. There's things that you kind of just learn subconsciously, being immersed just in that household. It's just things that you just pick up. I call it kind of like osmosis. You're just, you're there. So it just happens to be something you pick up. But then there are things that you consciously are taught, by them either telling you or, speaking to you or whatever the case may be. So definitely one thing, my parents always taught was just work ethic, like whatever you do your best. I just remember my mom always saying this, I don't really care what you do in life. Like, it didn't matter if I was a plumber, a dancer, an entrepreneur, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Just whatever you do, you better do it. And she would always say that whatever you do, you better do it. So I would hear that all the time. So, it's funny now because today, a lot of my friends, a lot of people know me. I always get this joke of like, dude, whatever you touch is gold. Like every time you do something, you always just like blow up and do all this stuff. And again, I think it just really had to do with what was consciously taught to me. There's a saying that it's not what you leave your kids, it's what you leave in them. And I wasn't left a lot of stuff. There's no inheritance, at least that I know of, that my parents don't even own their own house that they live in now. Obviously, great individuals, and they worked and did as best as they can. And they obviously are still alive today and did and are doing and did as best as they could. But they don't necessarily have it's not like there's any wealth that's just going to be kind of transferred over. But essentially, the wealth that they transferred was the mindset that allows you to create that wealth.
Wow.
Now, interestingly enough, they obviously instilled a number of those mindset, attributes, but they haven't necessarily created that wealth in their own life. But that's because there's other things that, again, there are subconscious things you learn from your parents and or your upbringing and conscious things. So even though they consciously knew things like hard, work ethic, and really, really executing and being true to your word, there's some subconscious things that I think kind of, hindered their ability to be able to create that wealth that they wanted to. And a lot of that, honestly, is just financial education, just understanding and learning how to create opportunities in your life and how to be, open-minded enough to essentially have somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit. So I definitely learned the work ethic and the mindset of, whatever it is that you want to do, you can do that. And
that's amazing. That's
really
empowering.
It's really important. It's really important. I
Wow.
think a lot of people struggle sometimes with thinking whether or not they can do something. So it might be very, easily overlooked, but it is a very powerful thing to have mentally.
Yeah.
So
That's so good. What kind of kid were you? Like, what were you like?
I know, right? It's funny. Honestly, I'm very similar to how I was as a kid, honestly,
Yeah.
but like I just obviously a little bit more professional in a sense, but I was very all over the place, outgoing, like always into everything, like very adventurous, wasn't really in front of the TV as much. I was always into something, trying to, build a fortress, with my bed and sheets and boxes, or, trying to learn how a stereo was built. I'm saying these things because I remember, like looking at a stereo and being like, my mom and dad don't use this. So I would like take a screw and just unscrew everything and try to like basically reverse engineer, figure out how to build things.
Very curious.
Very curious. Right. And then, very athletic. I, played a ton of sports, baseball, soccer, football, swim team, I was just very active. My mind was always running and I needed to, have some sort of outlet, to, really release that energy and do something constructive. But it wasn't until like my, college years where the entrepreneurial, business kind of kicked off. So
what is an entrepreneur?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I'm sure obviously, there's an actual definition of what an entrepreneur is, and everyone has their own like, their own response to when someone says, "What is an entrepreneur?" But, I essentially think, an entrepreneur is just someone who is really passionate and really skillful at solving problems. It is very hard to be an entrepreneur and not be passionate about something. Any entrepreneur that's an actual entrepreneur, they are very passionate about these. Now, you might think, well, doesn't everyone have some kind of passion for something? I do believe everyone has some kind of thing that they're interested in, but there's something a little bit different in terms of passion that drives you. It's actually self-motivating, and you're passionate about it because there's no exogenous factor that needs to like motivate you towards doing anything. You just do it because you're excited about, you're so curious and interested in this thing that for instance, there's this, there's a saying that, you should follow your passions, right? If you want to be successful, go out and whatever your passion is, go out and follow your passion to be successful. And I actually don't believe that, right? I mean, I think what you should actually do is follow your effort. Because we have a lot of different passions. There's things that we're curious about and passions that, we're interested in, and they change actually over time as well. Yeah. But if you actually look at your life, where do you put a lot of your effort into? And if you really dive deeper into wherever you put your effort into things and you focus on that, you'll actually start to develop a very passionate, sort of attitude about it, because whatever you put your effort into, you're generally going to just do that extra mile more than the person who, kind of has to maybe do it. Right. So imagine someone who, maybe they have a passion for music. They have a passion for art. But most of the time they're always like, on the computer trying to code or like, build websites or build, it's just something they put a lot of effort into doing. And they do it for friends. It maybe not necessarily has been identified as like, this is my passion, but they just put a lot of effort in doing that and they do it really well. You should actually pursue that effort. because then what'll happen is you already have that advantage in terms of like whatever advantage that you might have, in terms of being able to execute on that skill. But because you now have focused on this is what I'm going to focus on, you'll actually move faster than someone who maybe just needs a job and they're trying to learn computer science and they're just trying to learn how to do the coding. Because you already put that effort in there without anyone telling you, you're always going to go that extra mile, and then you're going to become more passionate because you're going to see results. And once you start seeing the results, you become more passionate and you see more results. And then it's just a sort of circle that, honestly, generally will bring great success. But it started with wherever you were putting your effort. Now that same person could still have passions, right? They could still have, music passions like me. Someone might say like, oh, real estate's my passion. I'm very passionate about real estate now, but that wasn't necessarily the case. Yeah. What was my effort was actually creating financial freedom. I put a lot of effort in creating basically businesses. And what ended up happening is the opportunity of real estate came my way. And because I already put a lot of effort in creating businesses, I put an effort to try and create that into a business. And again, because I followed my effort, not necessarily it being a passion, I did more than what maybe the average person would do. And then it created success. And I got more excited about that, and I got more passionate about it. And now I can talk about real estate, and I'm super passionate. Everyone thinks like, obviously, like that's like, oh, that's real estate's like his thing. But I followed my effort, first. So anyway, I don't even know if I answered your question, but yeah.
Yeah, that's good. What's an entrepreneur? So.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So an entrepreneur, yeah, I think I answered that. I'm sure. There you go. Yeah.
So you talked a lot about success and how it's been successful. How do you define success?
Yeah, I mean, I define success maybe a little bit differently. Like for me, I think success is a daily thing because you can, and that's just me personally, right? I think it's success to me is congruent with like growth. It's like saying, have you ever just grown to you're just done growing? Like, no, you like continue to grow and learn and grow and learn. It's never like obviously you could just stop learning things and then you're actually going backwards. You never stay still. You're either growing or you're like declining because time keeps moving. So you have to always continue moving forward as well. Yeah. So when it comes to success, I think for me, a lot of people look at success as like this destination, right? Like the amount of money you have, maybe you have financial freedom now, maybe you have a certain family lifestyle or dynamic, and all those things might be great experiences within those moments. But the reality is there's some days that don't feel like as successful as others, right? And you could still be really successful. Like, wouldn't it be true if you don't make $1 million right now, you're speaking or talking to someone who makes $10 million a year to think that they're successful? Oh, they're successful. They're done. They're like, but that person who's making $10 million a year, maybe just the night before they had a ton of anxiety about losing that money, and they necessarily they're struggling and working through still having the right mindset about the money that they have, because they operate in fear of they're just going to lose it all the time, which isn't a healthy mindset. But again, it's something they're struggling with, but you think that they're super successful. But so the reality is every day it's about how can you succeed in what's in front of you. And I think success should be defined as a daily experience, kind of like taking a shower, right? You can take a shower today, but if you don't do it tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day, just because you took a shower that day, you're going to probably start smelling pretty bad, right, as you move forward. So you got to look at success that way. And it actually allows you to sort of digest the experience of success a little bit better, because I think a lot of times, some people don't feel successful for so long because they're still waiting for this destination. But if you actually break it day by day, you'll realize yesterday, dude, you were successful. The day before that was a success. And maybe you can go even more granular, and you could say even the moments that you had within a day, right? Like people say like, oh, I had a bad day, or oh, today was such a bad day. You never have a bad day, right? Because if you woke up and you opened your eyes, that sounds like a pretty good day to me that you're alive, but you had maybe challenging moments. So you can never have a bad day. Never. No one has ever, if you're alive, you're looking at it, you're alive. So you have opportunity. That alone is great, right? Yeah. So it's just moments that are challenging. So it's the same thing with success. It's just, how can you look at each day as like, man, today was successful each day.
How do you develop a positive mindset?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to create a strong mental attitude. But I think one of the best, there's, let's just get practical, right? So one way you can do it is just by studying it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Study those that have great mindsets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one way you can do that is by reading books from successful people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Find individuals, Tony Robbins, John C. Maxwell, Darren Hardy, Les Brown, T. Harv Eker. I mean, we can go on, and these are international people. So it doesn't matter where you are in the country. A lot of these people, people know Tony Robbins in China and, Israel, so it's international, but, study them and learn how they operate within their mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, there is there's a way of learning that's kinesthetic, right? And the whole idea of kinesthetic learning is you actually moving, because it actually it replicates in your own real life, in your own real time and in real life, what it is that you could just study and look, right? So there's a difference between if I look at someone riding a bike, right, that technically is still learning, right? I'm learning how they're doing that, but I'm doing it visually. You can also learn auditorially, right? You can sit in a classroom and you can just listen and learn, right? But kinesthetically, like that actually there's certain chemical things that happen in your brain for you to do certain motions, right? So you can actually wire your brain by immersing yourself around. Where I'm getting at is basically immersing yourself in environments of people that have really great and positive mindsets. Because it's interesting how it works, but it's just, you spend enough time around people, I guess, to make it even more simple. You spend enough time around people, you tend to be like them a lot of times, right? It's kind of like the little wolf boy. He's like a human, but he's like hanging out with wolves, and he just starts like, he's like, like breathing, or he's like barking, or like, doing whatever as a wolf, like. It's essentially, or I guess probably a better example would be like Tarzan. I think a lot of people know Tarzan, right? Like, Tarzan's with the animals in the jungles, and, and he's a human, but because he immersed himself in an environment, he became like them and he thought like them. So another great way to do that is to not spin around people that are constantly negative. I think one of the two types of people you should really, I don't want to say, because it could be family members and things like that. You don't need to like, just, immediately or, forever, just, expel them out of your life. But you want to be conscious of the amount of time you spend around them. And I really identify these people, and I'm like, all right, I try to spend not as much time. People that tend to consciously and regularly immerse themselves in big media news and share that with everyone. Those people, and the only reason, they're not bad people, but the reason I'm saying that is because whatever you focus on becomes your reality. And people that tend to focus on, they wake up in the morning, they have their coffee, they just turn on CNN, right? Or they turn on the news. It's not that they're bad people, but what's happening is they're inputting in their brain a majority of things that are going wrong in the world. So what do you think their attitude will reflect? Well, the world's, everything's, going to X, Y, and Z, and, everything's bad, and there's all this, evil, and there's all this negative and all this stuff. And what's funny is and I'm not saying these things aren't things to know, or just, things that are world news stuff that's happening. But if you make that your majority and you're just focusing on that all the time, the crazy thing again is like whatever you focus on becomes reality, because for whatever negative news that is released, hey, there was this shooting that happened in X, Y, and Z, which again, we absolutely never want anyone to go through those things. But the reality is to put that on a platform that just spreads that all over as if that's the majority of life. You could find the very opposite happening that very same moment in some other place around the world or wherever.
What is your mindset when it comes to money?
I think it's important to just surround yourself by people who are actively trying to improve their financial habits. I think that honestly, it's as simple as that. Like there's a lot of different things that we could go into about money, but I think just, really actively seeking out information about having better money habits will already open up so many just things that will improve your financial mindset and literacy. That's one of the biggest things that I did, honestly, and just learn from other individuals. So
what are like a few of those top things that you follow when it comes to money?
Yeah. So this one, some of these are a little bit more high level, entrepreneurial. So maybe it's not for everyone, but one of the things is a lot of times people, say, hey, look at what you're spending and kind of just get rid of all these little things you're spending, like going to Starbucks, a
Mhm.
couple of times throughout the week. Like, stop doing that. Save, all these different things. And honestly, I think that's actually the reverse of how you should be thinking, because it's focusing more so on small expenses rather than
Mhm.
looking at the big picture. The big picture is, how can you actually generate more so that you can do the things that you just like to do.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so I don't really focus on just like, okay, I'm not going to go to Starbucks, 2 or 3 times, or how many times did I go to the
Yeah.
store to, how about let's figure out how to double or triple your income, how to
Mhm.
maybe add supplemental income with a skill that you already, you already have, or you already know.
Wow.
So that, something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's really good. Wow. And do you set goals in life?
I do. I do set goals. It's a little bit different for me now. I set goals more so for the week,
Mhm.
and for basically maybe the a couple months up to 6 months generally, of things that I'm trying to do. But I don't necessarily, I have goals that I would like to do, but I don't set them. So there's a
Okay.
different mindset in it. Like,
Mhm.
the reason I don't set the goal is because, as we all know, life changes all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know, how old some of these individuals are that are listening to this, but I'm old enough to know that I've had goals that I've achieved, but they've never necessarily been like, this is what I set, it was this, and then like I hit it at this time or in this way.
Mhm.
A lot of times it's being able to adapt, adjust, to be able to get there. And you just never know what life brings. And I'd rather be
Yeah.
flexible and just, have
Mhm.
goals that I'm focusing on obtaining. But
Mhm.
you can be very specific, and you should, when it comes to today and for the next 6 months. You definitely should focus on your daily goals, right?
Yeah.
Because a great year, and this is the last thing I'll say about that, is a great year is made from great months. And great months
Mhm.
are made from great weeks, and great weeks are made from great days.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to focus on the whole year. If you at least have an idea of where you want to go, focus on, are you executing every day?
Mhm.
And you'll get there.
Wow. It's really good. I liked that a lot.
Oh.
Yeah. So transitioning a little bit, you had a huge life change. You mentioned that you got hit by a drunk driver that left you an amputee. Would you be able to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I essentially was coming home from the gym, and a lady was intoxicated. She was going 91 miles per hour and just crashed right into my car head on. And, it just comes out of
Your
nowhere. You
life
never
changed
know.
overnight.
Oh yeah. I mean, it can happen to anybody, obviously you never think it'll happen to you. I don't even drink or like alcohol. So it's just crazy how that happened. But,
Yeah.
for those reasons, obviously like this, but yeah, I was hit by a drunk driver, and, essentially one of the worst accidents in the upstate is what I've heard from prison. I was, on the news, and it was just, really
Wow.
wild. But,
Wow.
um, you know, the Lord had better plans, and I had a really strong mindset as well. It's not
Mhm.
just the Lord. You have to have,
Yeah.
hopefully, that's why it's important to work on your mindset and your attitude, because you have to
Mhm.
be prepared, right? And if you fail to prepare, then you're preparing to fail,
Mm.
right? So it's important to work on your mindset now and not wait for when there's an ambulance, so to speak,
Yeah.
in your life, and now
Yeah.
you gotta, really try to have the right attitude. So
So do you feel like having the strong mindset that you had beforehand helped
oh
carry you
yeah.
through the healing
Oh yeah, I
process?
mean, most definitely. I mean, the
Yeah.
biggest thing I think was just perspective. I mean,
Mhm.
it's never easy, even today. I mean, I've been an amputee, for a year and almost 2 years now, but it's still
Wow.
never easy. I mean, you wake up every day, with obviously limbs cut off. It's never easy to do that.
Wow.
And then I have many other injuries too that, obviously most people don't think about, but that are honestly even worse than the amputation. The amputation has honestly been the most simple thing.
Wow.
So of course, having that mindset, it gave me perspective, or having the right mindset gave me the right perspective, that honestly, even though it sounds crazy, because like I said, it doesn't make it easier, but it is true. It could be way worse.
Mhm.
And it just gives you that much more of a positive attitude to move forward, that like, man, at least I have my voice, my mindset, my, other limbs,
Mhm.
it could definitely have been way worse. So it just gives you a sense of appreciation.
Wow. And what advice or words would you say to somebody who needs healing in their life? Maybe it's not just physical limbs, but maybe it's healing hurts from people in the past, wounds from childhood, any of that kind of stuff. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very deep journey and a lot of times spiritual journey to go on. So
Yeah.
it's not really anything like a certain quote or a certain phrase or a pill,
Yeah.
it's essentially repetition and understanding how to forgive and also understanding how to love
Mm.
despite any sort of trauma or harm that people do. And I think a perspective helps as well, is that you would want someone to forgive you if you made a mistake or did something. So like the lady who hit me, I mean, I've never felt ill towards her. Now, do I like having to necessarily have the injuries and stuff I have? Of course not. It would be easier if I didn't have it, but I know at the end of the day, she made a mistake. And have
Mhm.
I not made a mistake, now I may not have ever, put someone in the hospital and have them, have their leg amputated, but
Mhm.
we've all done things that maybe have amputated someone
Yeah.
mentally or spiritually or emotionally, whatever the
Mhm.
case may be. So, it's still a harm either
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
And you would want to have someone forgive you. So, kind of as they say, do unto others as you want to receive. So you just have to
Yeah.
be able to forgive and kind of walk through that process. Now, for me personally, my faith obviously is my foundation in helping me through that.
Mhm.
But I understand maybe not everyone necessarily is, driven in terms of a Christ-like perspective. But for me, that was like my foundation. But
Mhm.
I think that's important for sure.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. We have talked about many things in this interview today, and I feel like it's been just great to learn from you as we've been sitting here. So thank you so much, Myles.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Hopefully, wasn't too much, but